Have you ever paused to consider the final digit of the year you were born? Not the year itself, not the month or the day. Just that last number, the closing note of your birth year, like the final beat of a drum announcing your arrival into this world. It seems trivial at first glance. A number you've probably written thousands of times on forms, documents, and memories without ever questioning it. But in the symbolic world of the soul, what appears insignificant can hold profound meaning. That single digit may carry a hidden resonance, a vibration that echoes through the architecture of your psyche, subtly guiding your emotional tendencies, your existential questions, your very relationship with time. Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology, taught us that nothing in life is random, not even the moment of our birth. According to Jung, the universe speaks in symbols. It speaks through myth, through dreams, and even through the language of numbers. These symbols form what he called archetypes, primordial patterns that shape human experience across cultures and eras. They're not just stories, they're energetic imprints, embedded in everything, including time itself. To Jung, time was not merely a sequence of hours or dates. It was a living force with psychological flavor. The age we are born into, the cultural climate, the collective psyche of a decade, all of it leaves a symbolic imprint on the soul. We are born into more than just a body. We are born into an atmosphere of meaning. And that final digit of your birth year, it's like a symbolic fingerprint, a subtle clue. What if that number, whether it's a 1, a 5, a 9, or a 0, carries a tone that's uniquely attuned to your soul's rhythm? This isn't about superstition or deterministic labels. Jung was never interested in telling people who they were with rigid definitions. He was interested in awakening the parts of ourselves we've ignored, in helping us see how the unconscious influences the conscious, how patterns silently shape our lives. And numbers, when approached symbolically, can be windows into those patterns. Think of it this way. 0 isn't just a placeholder. It's a symbol of the void, of infinite potential, of spiritual beginnings. 1 isn't just a starting point. It's the archetype of the pioneer, the one who breaks away to form identity. Each digit, 2, 3, 4, and beyond, carries its own mythic essence. They show up in religious traditions, folklore, and psychological themes across history. So what might your final digit reveal? This exploration is not about defining you. It's about offering a lens, a mirror, a whisper from your deeper self. It's an invitation to listen more closely to the patterns that have always been there, to ask, what is the symbolic invitation of the time I was born into? And what has my soul been quietly resonating with since the very beginning? In the chapters ahead, we'll walk through each digit from 0 to 9 and explore the archetypal meaning it may carry, not as fortune-telling, not as dogma, but as a path toward inner recognition, toward remembering something essential that perhaps you've always felt but never put into words. Take a breath, and let the number at the end of your birth year become your guide into the symbolic, into the soulful, into the forgotten language of meaning. What you're about to explore might do more than change how you look at a number. It might reshape how you see your life's rhythm, your soul's unfolding story, the seasons you've moved through, and the sacred timing that brought you exactly where you are. Because this isn't just about numbers, it's about resonance, about the symbolic imprint you were born into, about what the final digit of your birth year might reveal about your essence, your path, and the invisible script your soul has been quietly following since the day you took your first breath. Let's step now into Carl Jung's symbolic understanding of time. To Jung, life wasn't random. It wasn't a chaotic sequence of events, but a deeply patterned dance. a dance choreographed by symbols, those mysterious universal images and forces that shape our psychology from the inside out. Jung saw symbols not as poetic flourishes or abstract ideas, but as living forces in the psyche, dynamic energies that influence how we feel, think, choose, love, and suffer. He noticed that symbols repeated across time, across cultures, in myths, in rituals, in dreams. They weren't accidental. They were meaningful. They were signs from the unconscious, messengers from the depths of the soul. And the more we paid attention to these symbols, the more we could align with the deeper wisdom trying to move through us. Now let's bring this symbolic lens to something most people overlook entirely: numbers. In modern life, we treat numbers as sterile tools, units of measure, things to calculate. We rarely pause to wonder what they mean beyond their function. But for ancient cultures, and for Jung, numbers were never just math. They were alive. They held power. Each number carried a specific energy, a certain vibration, a symbolic role in the great story of existence. From the 0 that represented the cosmic void to the sacred triad of 3, or the transformative power of 7, numbers were seen as spiritual codes, archetypal blueprints. They showed up not only in sacred texts, but in dreams, visions, and mystical traditions across the world. Jung embraced this symbolic view. He studied how numbers appeared in alchemical texts, how they surfaced in dreams during times of crisis, how they represented deep psychological processes: union, conflict, transformation, rebirth. To him, numbers weren't predicting the future. They were mirrors of the soul's inner structure. They reflected something already alive within us. So let's bring this back to your birth year. Your birth year isn't just a historical fact. It's a symbolic doorway, a timestamp of the collective energy you entered into. It holds the atmosphere of the world at that precise moment. The culture, the fears, the dreams, the archetypes that were most active in the human psyche at the time. And at the end of that year is a digit. Just one. Small maybe, but potent. By the way, if you're curious to go even deeper and integrate your shadows and light, check out the S.I.M method ebook. It's a concise guide that can help you unlock your inner power in just 5 minutes a day. The link is in the first pinned comment below. That final number is like the closing note of a song. It doesn't define the whole composition, but it colors it. It sets the emotional tone. It lingers, like an echo that quietly hums beneath everything that follows. And what if that echo has lived inside you ever since? What if the final digit of your birth year holds a frequency that your soul naturally vibrates with? Not because of superstition, but because it entered with you. Like a seed planted in time, growing silently beneath the surface of your choices, your wounds, your longings, and your desires. In Jungian thought, such a possibility wouldn't be strange. It would be expected. Time to Jung was not empty. It was saturated with meaning. And by looking at your symbolic entry point into time, your birth, we gain insight into the archetypal forces that shaped your becoming. So as we begin exploring the digits from 0 to 9, don't think of this as labeling. Think of it as listening. Think of each number as a whisper from your soul, offering a reflection of the energies you may have been carrying all along. Not as fate, but as invitation. Let's decode the rhythm of your arrival. Let's listen to what time might have been singing the moment your soul entered the world. Let's take a simple example. Imagine you were born in 1984. That final digit, 4, carries a different psychological resonance than someone born just 5 years later, in 1989. While the 4 tends to radiate structure, discipline, and grounded energy, the 9 pulses with the weight of endings, transitions, and depth. One seeks to build a solid foundation, brick by brick. The other often stands at the threshold between chapters, pulled by the urge to release and renew. You've likely sensed this difference in people around you, without ever putting it into words. Some feel like natural stabilizers, quietly constructing order out of chaos. Others seem to live in cycles of profound closure and rebirth, always shedding old skins to grow into something new. This isn't coincidence. It's pattern. It's soul rhythm. Because while the last digit of your birth year is small, its symbolic tone can reverberate through your inner world in subtle and meaningful ways. It can show up in your strengths, your longings, your inner battles, and even in the kinds of relationships you attract. So what does each number represent, psychologically and symbolically? That's what we're about to explore. In the coming sections, we'll walk together through each final digit, from 0 to 9, and reflect on the tone it carries. Not as a label, not as a fixed destiny, but as an invitation to self-awareness. Each digit offers a mirror, a way to understand how archetypal energy might be expressing itself through your patterns, your timing, and your deepest self. Before we begin, let's be clear. You are not a number. Jung would never condense the vastness of a soul into a symbol and call it truth. But he might say, watch the symbol. It's trying to tell you something. Because symbolic thinking isn't about narrowing your identity. It's about expanding your awareness. So ask yourself, where does this pattern already live in me? What parts of my soul seem to echo this tone, and how can I live more consciously in alignment with it? This journey isn't about predictions. It's about perspective. And it's not about changing who you are. It's about understanding what's always been within you, waiting to be named, seen, and honored. When we open our eyes to the symbolic language of time, we begin to recognize the invisible architecture beneath our lives. We begin to navigate instead of drift. You don't need to believe in magic to believe in meaning. And you don't need to find answers to grow. Sometimes you just need to ask the right questions. So take a breath. Look gently at your own timeline and ask, what has this number, this quiet digit, been trying to whisper to my soul all along? Now let's begin. We start where everything begins and ends. 0. Final digit 0. The soul of the beginning and the end. To be born in a year that ends in 0 is to carry a sacred vibration, one that defies the linear, the ordinary, and the expected. 0 is not just a number. It is a paradox. A circle with no beginning and no end. A silent echo in the architecture of time. And while the world may see it as nothing, the soul knows otherwise. In ancient spiritual traditions, 0 was revered not as a void, but as the womb of all creation. It was the space before the first sound, the breath before the first word. Not emptiness, but infinite potential. A field of possibility where anything can be born, where all opposites merge and dissolve into unity. Symbolically, 0 is the archetype of the self, as Carl Jung might describe it. Not the self as personality, but the self as totality. The wholeness that holds both light and shadow, masculine and feminine, conscious and unconscious. Jung often used the image of a mandala, a perfect circle, to represent this center of the soul. And in this sense, 0 is not passive. It is primordial. It is the original ground of being from which all things emerge and to which all things return. If your birth year ends in 0, you may feel this in your bones, even if you've never named it. A quiet awareness that life is cyclical, not linear. That progress is not always forward, and that meaning is not found in speed but in stillness. You may feel out of place in a world obsessed with direction, with results, with noise, because your soul remembers a deeper rhythm. Those born under the tone of 0 often carry an inner gravity. They draw others in, not through performance, but through presence, through listening, through silence. They tend to be intuitive, reflective, and attuned to the spaces between things. There is something timeless about them, something beyond personality. Others may find them calming without knowing why. These are the souls who feel like home, not because they conform, but because they contain. You might carry the archetype of the sage, the mystic, or even the eternal child, not in the sense of immaturity, but in your ability to remember the wonder, the sacred, the invisible. Your energy is often quiet, but it is never empty. It is the pause that makes the music meaningful, the breath that reconnects the body to spirit, the soul that remembers where we came from and where we return. But the path of 0 is not always easy, because this number is so deeply tied to emptiness, its shadow can be heavy. You may feel at times like you don't belong anywhere, like you are watching the world from the outside, floating between roles, between desires, between lifetimes. You may experience waves of existential longing or spiritual fatigue, a hunger for something you cannot name. And in a world that demands clarity, identity, and constant action, this hunger can feel like failure. But it's not failure. It's a calling. The emptiness you feel is not a void. It's a signal, a sacred discomfort that pushes you inward. Your soul isn't broken. It's deep. And it's asking you to trust the wisdom of stillness, to honor the places where others rush past, to see that beginnings and endings are never truly separate, but part of the same breath. When you embrace the energy of 0, you become something rare, a guardian of sacred space, someone who doesn't just do but holds, someone who doesn't just move, but aligns. You become the person others come to when the world no longer makes sense, because you carry the quiet memory that meaning was never found in noise, but in the stillness beneath it. You may not always be understood. That's okay. You were not born to be loud. You were born to be true, to be whole, to remember what the world forgets. In Jung's symbolic vocabulary, you carry the image of the self, not the fragmented ego, but the deep center where all things converge. Your presence is circular. Your life is a spiral, and your soul is a mirror, reminding others not of who they should become, but of what they already are. If this is your number, then you are not here to chase the path. You are here to recognize when one ends and another quietly begins. Final digit 1, the soul that dares to begin. To be born in a year ending in 1 is to carry within your soul the spark of origin, a force that does not wait for permission, but steps forward into the unknown. While 0 represents the sacred stillness before creation, 1 is the flame that ignites it, the bold initiation of a journey that has never been taken before. Symbolically, the number 1 is the archetype of the beginning, of emergence, of individuality in its rawest form. In Jungian language, it marks the first moment the soul steps out from the collective shadow and begins to shape its own identity. It is the energy of separation, not as rejection, but as necessary self-discovery. Those whose birth year ends in 1 often feel this energy early. Even in childhood, they may sense a subtle tension between who they are expected to be and who they truly are. There is a quiet urge to define themselves outside of roles, labels, or traditions. Whether introverted or expressive, their soul tends to whisper, "I need to find my own way." Carl Jung taught that true transformation requires individuation, the process of becoming who you uniquely are, distinct from the herd, awake to your inner truth. And the number 1 carries this exact impulse, the impulse to begin, to lead, to say, This has not been done yet, but I will do it. If you were born under this number, your soul likely resonates with the pioneer, the trailblazer, or the initiator archetype. You're drawn to innovation. You may question systems. You likely resist anything that demands blind conformity. And while this can be a beautiful gift, it can also be lonely, because with every initiation comes separation. The shadow of one is not darkness, it's isolation. The fear that if you go your own way, you will be alone. That if you lead, no one will follow. This fear can push you into self-protection, into over-control, into the exhausting belief that you must do it all alone. And yet, the truth is the opposite. Your path is not solitary. It is archetypal. It calls you to lead, yes, but not from ego, from soul. Jung warned that when the ego becomes inflated, it forgets its place as a part of the greater self. And for those under the vibration of one, this inflation can show up as over-identification with being the first, the best, or the only one who can. This isn't arrogance, it's fear wearing armor. The healing comes when you realize that true leadership begins with inner alignment. That being a pioneer doesn't mean having all the answers. It means having the courage to take the first step, even if your voice shakes. When integrated, the energy of one becomes deeply inspiring. You become someone who opens doors, not just for yourself, but for others. You don't demand that people follow. You simply show them that they can begin too. You become the flicker of light that others recognize in themselves. If this is your number, your soul carries the wisdom of creative courage. You are not here to copy. You are not here to conform. You are here to spark new paths, to birth new ideas, to initiate change, not by force, but by authentic presence. And perhaps, most importantly, you are not here to prove yourself. You are here to be yourself. Let the fire within you burn, not to destroy, but to illuminate. Let your steps be messy, uncertain, brave, and know that every time you choose authenticity over acceptance, you are honoring your soul's deeper truth. In a world of repetition, you are the reminder that something new is always possible, not just for you, but for all who dare to follow their own light. Final digit 2. The soul that feels in pairs. To be born in a year ending in 2 is to carry the sacred imprint of duality, the dance between self and other, between inner world and outer expression. While the energy of 1 seeks individuality and initiation, 2 moves toward connection, reflection, and resonance. It is the moment the soul begins to recognize that it is not alone. This is not the energy of dominance, but of attunement. Not the need to lead, but the desire to harmonize. In symbolic terms, 2 is the mirror, reflecting back, absorbing nuance, reading what is unspoken. It is the archetype of the lover, the peacemaker, the empath, a soul wired for relationship, for intimacy, for emotional depth. People born under this vibration often sense the emotional current in a room before words are even spoken. From a young age, they may have noticed how others felt, sometimes more clearly than they understood their own inner states. These are the children who adapted quickly, who soothed others, who became what was needed to preserve connection. Harmony, for them, was not a luxury. It was survival. Jung spoke often of the anima and animus, the feminine and masculine principles that exist in all of us. Those shaped by the number 2 often have a heightened sensitivity to this inner polarity. They seek union, not just romantically, but spiritually. A longing lives in them to be fully seen, to merge with another in such a way that the soul feels understood at its core. It is a beautiful yearning, but also a vulnerable one, because the shadow of 2 is self-abandonment. In reaching for the other, they may lose themselves. Their gift of empathy can become a wound when it flows only outward, when they silence their own voice to preserve peace, or take on the emotional weight of others without boundary. The soul, under the influence of two, must learn the art of returning inward, of listening not just to others, but to the heartbeat within, of honoring their own needs, desires, and truth, even when it disrupts the illusion of harmony. Jung might say, "Your task is not to dissolve into love, but to bring your whole self into it." When this archetype is integrated, something radiant emerges. These individuals become bridges between hearts, capable of seeing both sides without collapsing into either. They are natural diplomats, counselors, poets, and healers, not because they fix others, but because their presence makes people feel held, safe, understood. Their strength lies not in control, but in compassion, not in loudness, but in depth. They remind the world that to feel is not weakness, it is wisdom. That vulnerability, when rooted in self-awareness, becomes a powerful force of connection. If your soul was born under the number 2, hear this. You are not fragile because you care. You are strong because you feel. Your longing for union is not a flaw. It is a sacred compass pointing you toward what is real. But remember, true union does not arise from emptiness. It begins when two whole souls choose to meet, not to complete each other, but to stand side by side in truth. So speak, feel, connect, but do not disappear. The world needs your heart, but it also needs your boundaries. Because when you honor both, you become what you were always meant to be, a sanctuary in motion. Final digit 3, the soul that dances with expression. If you were born in a year ending in 3, your soul likely carries the imprint of movement, meaning a manifestation. This is the number of the sacred spark, where energy flows not inward to hide, but outward to connect, express a transformer. While 1 marks the start of identity and 2 seeks reflection through the other, 3 births expression, the soul's desire to speak, to shape, to shine. In symbolic traditions across cultures, the number 3 is a sacred number, the Holy Trinity, the triangle, the bridge between opposites. It is where the union of 2 gives birth to a third reality, an idea, an image, a vibration. It is creativity in motion. In Jungian thought, 3 holds the energy of the trickster, the messenger, and the divine child. But not the child in a literal sense. Instead, the archetype of the child who brings renewal, spontaneity, laughter, curiosity, and life into a world grown rigid and tired. The one who reminds us what it means to be fully alive. People born under this number often feel the world differently. They don't just observe life, they absorb it. Stories, colors, rhythms, symbols. Their souls are attuned to the music beneath the surface. They may speak many languages, not only of words, but of movement, emotion, and metaphor. Even if quiet, they radiate a magnetic quality, the capacity to make others feel something, anything, everything. They are often creators, storytellers, poets, artists, jokers, not necessarily in profession, but in essence. There's a sense that life must be expressed or it will go stale. Their soul doesn't just ask, "What does this mean?" It asks, "How do I show it? How do I give it voice?" But this expressive gift carries a shadow. Because they feel so much, they may become overwhelmed by their own inner world. To cope, they may leap from project to project, person to person, moment to moment, always moving, always creating, always entertaining. But underneath, a fear may whisper, "If I stop, will I be consumed by what I feel?" Jung would offer this reminder: True communication does not begin with an audience. It begins with the self. The soul shaped by 3 must learn that silence is not the enemy of expression. It is its sacred well. When expression becomes a performance to distract from inner truth, the soul becomes fragmented. But when it is rooted in authenticity, expression becomes alchemy. When integrated, the energy of 3 becomes luminous. These souls become translators of the invisible, naming what others cannot say, giving shape to emotions no one else dares touch. They remind the world that grief can have rhythm, that joy can be a revolution, and that beauty is not luxury. It is medicine. They are not here to entertain. They are here to awaken. If your birth year ends in 3, your soul may carry the archetype of the messenger, not because you speak loudest, but because your truth cuts through noise. You are here to reveal, through words, through images, through gestures, the hidden soul of life. But do not forget to turn your voice inward. Speak to yourself. Sing into your own silence, and listen for the part of you that is still waiting to be named. Because when your voice is true, it doesn't just communicate, it illuminates. Final digit 4, the soul that builds what lasts. To be born in a year ending in 4 is to carry the soul of an architect, not of buildings, but of inner frameworks. While 3 flows freely and expresses outwardly, 4 lays foundations. It seeks stability, responsibility, and meaning through structure. Carl Jung often explored the symbolism of the number 4 in sacred geometry and mandalas. To him, it represented the manifest wholeness of the material world, the 4 elements, the 4 cardinal directions, the 4 seasons, the 4 functions of consciousness. 4 is not chaotic. It is the square, the pillar, the compass that orients transformation. Those born under this number may not crave attention, but they are often the quiet anchors in their environments. The ones who build, protect, organize, and hold space for others. They are the calm in the storm, the planners, the stabilizers. They make the invisible visible through consistency, integrity, and presence. There's often a deep sense of duty in these individuals, a feeling that someone has to hold it all together, and often that someone becomes them. Even in childhood, they may have felt older than their age, assuming emotional responsibilities others couldn't or wouldn't carry. Not out of pride, but because chaos unsettles something sacred within them. Yet the shadow of this archetype is rigidity. When the 4th energy is unconscious, it can become control disguised as a responsibility. It clings to routines, labels, or beliefs, not because they still serve, but because they once offered safety. It can fear change, fear spontaneity, fear surrender. Jung would remind us, structure must serve the soul, not suppress it. The task of the 4th soul is to recognize that flexibility is not weakness, it is wisdom. That strong foundations must know how to breathe. That safety is not found in resistance to change, but in conscious alignment with it. When this archetype is integrated, the individual becomes not just a builder of systems, but a keeper of peace. Someone who creates space where others can grow. Someone whose presence brings order, but also softness. They become the rare kind of strength that bends without breaking. If you were born under the tone of 4, remember, you are not here to hold everything for everyone. You are not here to fix the world alone. Your strength is sacred, but your softness, that is what makes it whole. You are not the wall. You are the one who knows how to build doors where others only saw limits. Final digit 5. The soul of sacred change. To be born in a year ending in 5 is to carry the soul of a transformer, one who cannot stay still, not because of restlessness, but because life is always calling you forward. The number 5 is the symbol of movement, curiosity, and evolution. In many mystical systems, it sits at the center of the digits 1 through 9, balancing stability, 4, and disruption, 6. It is the bridge between comfort and chaos, and those born under it often live right on that edge. In Jungian language, this number echoes the archetypes of the explorer, the rebel, or the initiate, the soul that undergoes many deaths and rebirths in one lifetime. These individuals often go through profound internal shifts, changing paths, beliefs, relationships, identities, not out of confusion, but because to remain unchanged feels like spiritual death. They are shapeshifters, yes, but not to deceive. They shift because the soul inside them is alive, and life demands authenticity in real time. They are often courageous, bold, and unwilling to settle for anything that feels false or stagnant. But the shadow of 5 is instability. When this energy is not grounded, it can become restlessness without direction. Change for the sake of change. Escapism disguised as freedom. These souls may chase the next thrill or reinvent themselves before roots can deepen. They may confuse stillness with stagnation and flee from the discomfort that actually leads to growth. Jung might say that these individuals embody the individuation process itself, a continual cycle of confronting the unfamiliar, shedding old selves, and becoming anew. But he would also warn, individuation is not about running. It's about staying present in the transformation. When integrated, the 5 becomes a guide through change, a torchbearer for what's possible. These souls don't just evolve, they invite others into evolution. They bring innovation, adaptability, and fresh air into spaces that have grown too still. If your birth year ends in 5, hear this. You are not broken because you never stay the same. You are becoming, over and over again. You were never meant to arrive. You are here to awaken the world through your becoming. And while you may never settle in the traditional sense, you can always root into your center, so that your change becomes not a flight from yourself, but a deeper return to who you truly are. Final digit 6, the soul that protects what is sacred. To be born in a year ending in 6 is to carry the soul of a guardian, someone who is instinctively drawn to nurture, protect, and remain present when others disappear. 6 is the number of devotion, of love in action, of holding things together, not for glory, but because the heart won't let go. In Jungian symbolism, this number evokes the archetype of the caretaker, the protector, or even the sacred heart, the one who gives without asking, who shows up even when they're exhausted, who becomes the quiet emotional backbone of others' lives. From an early age, those born under this number often feel emotionally responsible. They are the ones who comfort, who stabilize, who sense what others need before it's said. People are drawn to them, trust them, open to them. Their warmth creates a kind of unspoken safety, but the gift of care, when unbalanced, becomes a burden. The shadow of 6 is over-responsibility. These souls may lose themselves in others. They may carry emotional weight that was never theirs. They may stay too long, give too much, or confuse love with self-sacrifice. Jung would remind us, the path to wholeness includes yourself. The soul shaped by 6 must learn that boundaries are an act of love, not separation. That pouring from an empty cup serves no one. When integrated, this soul becomes not a martyr, but a true protector. Someone who stands rooted in compassion without abandoning themselves. Someone who can say yes from love and no from wisdom. If your final digit is 6, remember, you are not here to hold everyone's sorrow. You are here to hold what truly matters. starting with your own heart. You are not love's prisoner. You are its sanctuary. Final digit 7, the soul that seeks what lies beneath. To be born in a year ending in 7 is to carry the soul of the seeker, one who is never quite content with surface answers, who turns inward again and again, searching for what's real beneath the noise. Across symbolic systems, 7 is the number of mystery, of inner truth, of spiritual awakening. Jung might describe this energy through the archetype of the hermit, the visionary, or the philosopher, the one who descends into the unconscious, not to escape life, but to understand it. People with this imprint often feel like quiet observers. They see what others miss, question what others accept. Even as children, they may have carried a kind of quiet depth, contemplative, intuitive, emotionally attuned. They're often fascinated by psychology, dreams, mysticism, or the unseen dimensions of existence. But the gift of introspection comes with its shadow. The 7th soul may become isolated, lost in the mind, disconnected from the body and the moment. In seeking meaning, they may forget to live. In searching for truth, they may forget the beauty of the ordinary. Jung would say, wisdom must be embodied. Insight must be lived. The 7 is not meant to hide from the world. It is meant to return to it, transformed, carrying something only they could find. When integrated, these individuals become lighthouses, offering guidance not through force, but through quiet clarity. They help others remember what matters. They keep asking questions in a world obsessed with answers. If your number is 7, you are not here to withdraw. You are here to reveal what lies beneath illusion and return, not as a stranger to life, but as its deepest witness. Final digit 8, the soul that transforms pressure into power. To be born in a year ending in 8 is to carry the energy of transmutation. 8 is the number of power, mastery, karma, and consequence. It doesn't just dream, it builds. It doesn't just feel, it acts. But beneath that strength lies something sacred, the call to transform pain into purpose. In symbolic language, 8 is often linked with the alchemist, the one who works with the raw material of life, including shadow, and creates something of lasting value. People born under this number often experience intense cycles of breakdown and rebirth. They're not afraid of the dark, because their soul knows it holds gold. These individuals often lead, not always by title, but by presence. There is a gravitas to them, a sense of depth. They are drawn to impact, structure, change. They want to leave something real behind, not just for ego, but because their soul seeks legacy. But the shadow of 8 is the misuse of power. It may show up as control, emotional suppression, or overcompensation. The fear of vulnerability may drive them to armor their hearts. The desire to succeed may eclipse the need to feel. Jung would remind this soul, power that is not rooted in self-awareness becomes dangerous. True strength is never domination. It is integration. When this energy is balanced, 8 becomes a force of transformation. These are the people who move systems, elevate others, and build from a place of wholeness. They don't just chase success, they become the medicine they once needed. If your digit is 8, hear this. You are not here to conquer. You are here to transmute. Let your fire not burn, but refine. Final digit 9. The soul that knows how to release. To be born in a year ending in 9 is to carry the soul of completion. The wisdom that knows all things must end, and that letting go is not weakness, but sacred strength. 9 is the final number before the cycle resets. It holds the wisdom of every number that came before. Jung might associate this with the archetype of the wounded healer the elder, or the spiritual midwife, the one who holds space for grief, transformation, and rebirth. People born under this number often feel old beyond their years. They carry emotional depth. They are often drawn to themes of loss, healing, and transition. Not because they're dark, but because they see clearly that beauty is fleeting and truth is found in surrender. They may reinvent themselves many times, shedding roles, identities, and beliefs like skin. And in doing so, they help others grieve, let go, and begin again. But the shadow of 9 is over-identification with suffering. These souls may hold pain long after it's served its purpose. They may struggle to ask for help, or believe their role is always to be strong for others. Sometimes they carry burdens that no longer belong to them. Jung would remind this soul, wholeness does not mean endless self-sacrifice. It means knowing when to release. The path of the 9 is not just about closure, it's about integration. When embraced, this number becomes a beacon of compassion and truth. These souls help others face what hurts, with dignity, with courage, with love. They remind the world that endings can be sacred too. If your number is 9, remember, you are not here to carry everything. You are here to teach the world how to let go, with grace. You are not the end. You are the bridge to what's next. Most of us go through life without ever questioning the smallest details, like the final digit of our birth year. But Carl Jung taught us that nothing is ever truly random. Symbols speak, numbers whisper, and when we pause to listen, we might hear the soul calling. This digit is not your fate. It is not a definition, but it might be a key to your inner rhythm, to the silent longings you've always carried, to the invisible stories written into your journey. You are not a number, but maybe, just maybe, your number has been trying to show you who you already are. And now that you've seen it, what will you do with what your soul has remembered?